They poured gasoline over the trembling security guard and threatened to set him on fire unless he opened the vault. An act of raw terror that marked the beginning of one of the most chilling and legendary crimes in British history, the Brinksmat gold robbery, a heist so drenched in greed, betrayal, and blood that its curse would echo across decades, destroying everyone who touched it. And it all began in the freezing early hours of November 26, 1983, at a warehouse on the Heathrow International Trading Estate in London, where 6 armed men stormed in after being tipped off by an insider, a trusted night security guard named Anthony Black, who betrayed his post, his colleagues, and his conscience to orchestrate what was meant to be a quick and simple cash robbery, unaware that fate was about to hand them a fortune far beyond imagination. For inside that high-security Brinksmat facility, behind reinforced steel doors and locked vaults, they did not find piles of cash as expected, but instead stumbled upon a sight so dazzling it left them momentarily breathless. 6,800 bars of solid gold bullion stacked neatly in rows, glimmering coldly under the flickering warehouse lights, worth a staggering £26 million. A treasure so vast it would turn ordinary criminals into legends, and yet into doomed men as well, because the gold that sparkled that morning would soon cast the darkest shadow over their lives. And as the robbers stood frozen in disbelief, the realization of what lay before them ignited a feverish greed, for they had just found the largest gold haul in British history. And that discovery would change not only their fates, but the very landscape of organized crime in the United Kingdom. And so, after forcing the terrified guards to the floor, tying their hands and dousing one in petrol to make him reveal the vault code, they loaded their van with the heavy bars, sweating and shaking as they worked, every clang of metal echoing like the sound of destiny closing in. And within just 2 hours, the impossible was done, the men disappearing into the cold London dawn with an unimaginable fortune, leaving behind a warehouse that smelled of gasoline and fear. And as they drove away, hearts pounding with excitement and dread, none of them realized that this moment of triumph would soon become their curse. For turning that gold into usable wealth would prove to be their undoing as they transported the gold to a remote farmhouse in Kent, where it was melted down, mixed with copper, and disguised to appear as scrap metal, a necessary trick to avoid detection. And soon they brought in new faces, men who were not present at the robbery but would become key players in laundering the fortune. Most notably, Kenneth Noy, a calculating and cunning figure with deep underworld connections, skilled in the art of turning dirty money clean, and under his direction, the stolen gold began to move like smoke, through front companies, Swiss banks, offshore accounts, and international markets, eventually finding its way back into circulation, legally bought and sold by those unaware of its bloody past. Yet while the gold disappeared into the global economy, those who stole it began to unravel, consumed by greed, paranoia, and betrayal, because splitting the loot became impossible when trust no longer existed, and fear began to rot them from within. And it wasn't long before one careless mistake triggered their downfall. For Anthony Black, the inside man, had foolishly confided in his girlfriend about his role in the heist, and when she went to the police, the chain of secrecy snapped, leading to Black's arrest and confession, which exposed 2 key conspirators, Brian Robinson and Mickey McAvoy, who were later convicted and sentenced to 25 years each, though by then the gold was long gone, melted and laundered beyond recovery. And as investigators followed the money trail, they discovered a network so vast it implicated lawyers, accountants, and international dealers, revealing that the robbery had grown far beyond a heist. It had evolved into a multi-million-pound criminal enterprise that connected London's underworld to global finance, and soon the curse of the Brinksmat gold began to take shape. As those involved started dying in mysterious or violent ways, one by one, from execution-style murders to unexplained disappearances, with police later saying that more than 20 deaths were linked to the stolen bullion. Among them, Kenneth Noy himself, who in 1985 brutally stabbed undercover detective John Fordham to death after catching him spying near his property. A killing that exposed just how dangerous and powerful the Brinksmat network had become, And though Noy would later be convicted of handling stolen gold, he eventually walked free, only to later be imprisoned again for another murder, his life forever scarred by the ghost of the gold. And even as years passed, the story refused to die because the stolen bullion, most of it unrecovered, had already been absorbed into the global market, likely existing today as jewelry, watches, or even the circuitry of everyday electronics, its cursed glow hidden beneath normality, while the remaining criminals and their families lived haunted lives, their wealth tainted, their names whispered in fear. And even 4 decades later, police investigators still refer to it as the crime that keeps on giving, for its effects ripple through time, influencing laws on money laundering, exposing corruption, and reminding the world how a single act of greed can alter countless lives. And in the years since, documentaries, films, and books have immortalized the heist, painting it as both a masterstroke of cunning and a tragedy of human nature. A tale where fortune became a weapon and trust became death, for those men had walked into the Brinksmat warehouse as thieves seeking quick riches. But what they carried out bound them to a destiny soaked in blood, betrayal, and paranoia. And the haunting truth is that the gold never truly vanished. It simply changed form, a silent ghost still glimmering in the modern world. And so, when you hear the story of the Brinksmat robbery, remember this. It wasn't just gold that was stolen that morning. It was innocence. It was loyalty. It was life itself. For greed devours all who reach for it. And the men who thought they had stolen fortune instead found damnation. Their empire of gold turned to dust and regret, proving that some treasures are better left buried. So if this true story of greed, betrayal, and darkness gripped you to the core, don't forget to subscribe to Dark Thread Chronicles, where the real stories of crime, power, and tragedy are told, reminding us that the brightest gold often hides the darkest sins, and that in the end, those who chase fortune in the shadows are always consumed by it.